Welcome to the deep dive.
Right.
Today, we're going to be tackling something a little bit heavy,
Yeah.
but it's something that I think will resonate with a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
So we have a Reddit thread here from the subreddit, GuyCry.
Okay.
And it's basically just this really raw account of a guy who's packing up his life after 8 years
Oh, wow.
with his partner because she cheated on him.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. That's, it's heartbreaking to read.
Yeah, it's really heavy stuff.
It is.
And, when I read this, I thought it was so powerful because it just felt so honest and vulnerable and made me think about how, infidelity is something that a lot of people experience,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
but it's not something that we talk about very openly.
Right. It's kind of like this taboo subject.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why this Reddit thread is so fascinating because it's like this anonymous space where people can share their stories and connect with others who've been through similar experiences.
Yeah. And what's really striking is how many people responded to this guy's post.
Right. Like it just blew up.
Yeah. Over 1,100 upvotes and hundreds of comments.
It's crazy. It's like this whole community of people who've been affected by infidelity.
Yeah. And it just goes to show that this is something that a lot of people are dealing with.
Yeah, it's like this hidden epidemic no one talks about.
Exactly.
But here in this anonymous space, it's raw, it's honest, and it's surprisingly common.
Yeah, you really get a sense of the universality of this experience.
Totally.
Oh.
So before we dive into those responses, let's walk through the OP's story a little bit. What are some of the key moments that really stood out to you?
Well, the first thing that hit me was just how blunt he is right from the start. He says, getting cheated on sucks ass.
Yeah, no sugarcoating there.
Nope, straight to the point.
Yeah.
But then as he's packing up his U-Haul, you start to see these glimpses of the classic stages of grief.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like there's denial when he talks about how much he still loves her.
Right.
Then there's anger at the betrayal and even bargaining, like when he wonders if he could have done things differently.
Yeah, it's like he's replaying the relationship in his head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong.
Exactly, and it's all packed into these short little Reddit updates.
It's amazing how much emotion he conveys in just a few sentences.
Right, and it's not just a clinical stages of grief textbook thing either. He actually says, it kills who you are inside. I'm so tired.
Ugh, that's so heavy.
You really feel the weight of this, right? Like, infidelity isn't just about hurt feelings. It's a deep personal loss.
Absolutely. It's the loss of the relationship, the future you imagined, the trust you had.
Yeah, and in some ways, it can feel like a loss of yourself, as the OP so poignantly describes.
Yeah, it's like this betrayal cuts to the core of who you are.
Exactly.
And then, of course, the internet does what it does.
Oh, yeah.
Over 1,100 upvotes, hundreds of comments, people pouring out their hearts relating to his story.
It's incredible.
And this is where things get really interesting, right?
Oh, yeah. This is where the floodgates open and we start to see the real impact of infidelity.
It's not just sympathy either. It's a torrent of shared experiences.
People from all walks of life are saying, me too.
Yeah, long-term marriages, relationships with kids, infidelity doesn't discriminate.
Not at all. It's a universal experience, unfortunately.
It really is. And the advice that pours in is fascinating, too. It's all over the map.
Right. You've got everything from practical tips to emotional support to tough love.
Totally. So some people are like, focus on yourself, hit the gym, go to therapy.
Yeah, very practical advice.
But it's almost like they're saying, hey, take your power back. Don't let this define you.
Exactly. And then there's this other side of coping, finding connection.
Yeah, like the sheer number of people saying me too is staggering.
It really is. And while we're working with anecdotal evidence here on Reddit, research actually backs this up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, studies show that infidelity rates can be anywhere from 20% to over 70%, depending on factors like age, culture, relationship length.
Wow, 70%. That's a lot higher than I would have guessed.
It's a pretty sobering statistic.
It makes you wonder, why is this so prevalent? Is it a modern phenomenon, or has infidelity always been this common?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's tough to answer definitively. We've always had stories of infidelity myths, literature, historical gossip. What's changed is our ability to talk about it, to connect with others who've been through it.
Right. It's like the internet has lifted the veil of secrecy.
Exactly. And going back to those coping mechanisms, this is where that online community really shines.
Yeah, it's validation. It's knowing you're not alone.
One commenter even says, this thread is the therapy I couldn't afford.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is, and it speaks to a core human need connection, especially when you're dealing with something as emotionally charged as infidelity. Having a space to process, to vent, to receive support, that can be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's be real, not all advice is created equal.
Right.
Some comments are pretty harsh, like dump her lawyer up, she's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
While others are more forgiving, like talk it out, maybe there's a way to rebuild.
And this brings us to another layer of complexity.
Okay.
Whose fault is it? Is it solely on the cheater, or are there underlying issues within the relationship that played a role?
Yeah, that's the debate that keeps popping up in the thread.
Right, exactly.
Some people are firmly in the cheating is a choice, end of story camp.
Right.
While others are saying, hey, maybe there was a lack of communication, unmet needs things that contributed to this happening.
And both perspectives have valid points. We can't excuse cheating. It's a violation of trust. But understanding the context, the relationship dynamics, that's crucial too.
Right. It's rarely black and white.
Exactly.
And I think for the OP, reading those comments, maybe it helps him start to untangle those knots of self-blame, to see that infidelity often stems from a mix of individual choices and relationship dynamics. It doesn't diminish the hurt, but it adds nuance to a painful situation.
Absolutely. And that's where we start to see the limitations of just reading a Reddit thread.
Right.
We're getting glimpses into these complex issues. But to really dive deep, we need more. We need expert insights, psychological research, and a broader understanding of the societal factors at play.
Which is exactly what we're going to do in the next part of this deep dive.
Yes. We'll explore the long-term impact of infidelity, delve into strategies for healing and rebuilding trust, and touch on the importance of seeking professional guidance when needed.
Sounds good to me. Stay tuned for part 2.
We'll be right back. So we were talking about the stages of grief, and, it's important to remember that they don't happen in a neat little order.
Oh, yeah.
It's messy. It's cyclical. You see the OP flip-flopping between denial, like, maybe she still loves me.
Right.
And then anger, like, how could she do this?
Yeah, and then that bargaining stage, too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like he's replaying the relationship in his head.
Right.
Trying to pinpoint the moment where things went wrong.
Exactly.
Like if he could have changed the outcome somehow.
Yeah, and that's a trap a lot of us fall into, that self-blame.
Ugh, yeah, it's so easy to do.
It is. But here's where those healthy coping mechanisms come in.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that.
Instead of getting stuck in that loop, some commenters are urging him outward, like focus on your growth, hit the gym, see a therapist.
Yeah, it's good advice. It's practical.
It is.
But it's also like they're saying, hey, take your power back.
Exactly. Don't let this define you.
And then there's this other side of coping, too.
Right.
Finding connection.
Yeah, the sheer number of people saying me too, it's staggering.
It's crazy, right?
It is. And, while we're working with anecdotal evidence here on Reddit, research actually backs this up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Studies show that infidelity rates can be anywhere from 20% to over 70%.
What?
Depending on factors like age, culture, relationship length.
70%.
Yeah.
That's way higher than I would have guessed.
It is. It's a pretty sobering statistic.
Wow. So it makes you wonder, why is this so prevalent? Is it like a modern phenomenon, or has infidelity always been this common?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's tough to answer definitively. We've always had stories of infidelity myths, literature, historical gossip.
Right.
What's changed is our ability to talk about it, to connect with others who've been through it.
Yeah, like this Reddit thread is a prime example.
Exactly. And this goes back to those coping mechanisms. This is where that online community really shines.
Yeah, for sure.
It's validation. It's knowing you're not alone.
One commenter even said, this thread is the therapy I couldn't afford.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
And it speaks to that core human need for connection.
Absolutely. Especially when you're dealing with something as emotionally charged as infidelity. Having a space to process, to vent, to receive support, that can be a game changer.
Totally. But we got to be real, too. Not all advice is created equal.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Some of these comments are pretty harsh.
Like what?
Like, dump her lawyer up. She's not worth it.
Right. Very cut and dry.
Yeah, while others are more forgiving, like, talk it out. Maybe there's a way to rebuild.
So you've got the extremes on both ends.
Yeah, and it brings up another layer of complexity.
What's that?
Whose fault is it? Is it solely on the cheater? Or are there, like, underlying issues within the relationship that played a role?
Right. That's a question a lot of people are wrestling with in this thread.
Yeah, some people are firmly in the cheating is a choice, end of story camp, while others are saying, hey, maybe there was a lack of communication, unmet needs things that contributed to this happening.
And, both perspectives have valid points.
Yeah, I could see that.
We can't excuse cheating. It's a violation of trust.
Right.
But understanding the context, the relationship dynamics, that's crucial too.
Totally. It's rarely black and white.
It's not. And I think for the OP reading those comments, maybe it helps him start to untangle those knots of self-blame
Yeah, I made it.
To see that infidelity often stems from a mix of individual choices and relationship dynamics
Yeah.
doesn't diminish the hurt,
No.
but it adds nuance to a painful situation.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where we start to see the limitations of just reading a Reddit thread.
What do you mean?
We're getting these glimpses into these complex issues.
Mm,
But to really dive deep, we need more.
like what?
We need expert insights,
Mhm.
psychological research,
Yeah.
a broader understanding of the societal factors at play.
And that's what we're going to get into in the final part of this deep dive.
Yeah, we'll explore the long-term impact of infidelity,
Yeah.
delve into strategies for healing and rebuilding trust, and touch on the importance of seeking professional guidance when needed.
It's going to be a good one.
Okay, so we're back, and we've been talking about this Reddit thread about infidelity.
Yeah.
And, it's been a wild ride. Like,
It has.
the rawness of the OP's story, the outpouring of support, the conflicting advice, like,
Yeah.
it just highlights how messy and complicated this issue really is.
It does. And as we move into the final part of the deep dive, I think it's important to kind of shift our focus,
Okay.
from understanding why infidelity happens to exploring the aftermath.
Okay, yeah, like what does healing look like? How do you rebuild trust?
Exactly.
Yeah, because reading through those comments, you see people at all different stages of this journey.
Right.
Some are still reeling from that initial shock, while others are years out and sharing these stories of resilience and even new love.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see.
Yeah, it gives you hope, right? Like, even after something as painful as this, there's still the possibility for a happy ending.
Absolutely. But it's crucial to acknowledge that healing is not linear.
Okay.
It's not about getting over it,
Right.
but rather integrating this experience into your life story and learning from it.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What are some of the key takeaways for our listeners in terms of healing and rebuilding trust? Like, what did you find most insightful or helpful in those Reddit responses?
Well, one recurring theme that really stuck out to me was the importance of self-care.
Yeah. Okay, self-care.
It sounds simple, right?
Yeah.
But when you're in the throes of heartbreak, it's so easy to neglect your basic needs.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Sleep, nutrition,
We're
exercise.
just not thinking about it.
Exactly. But those things are foundational. You can't rebuild if you're running on empty.
Yeah, you got to take care of yourself first.
Right. And it's not just about physical self-care either.
Oh, yeah. What else?
Several commenters talked about therapy journaling, reconnecting with hobbies they'd neglected.
Right, you're right.
It's like rediscovering yourself outside the context of the relationship.
Okay, yeah, like finding your own identity again.
Exactly. Infidelity can shake your sense of self, make you question your worth.
Ugh. Yeah, it's brutal.
So that inward focus is crucial.
Yeah.
Reminding yourself of your strength, your passions, the things that make you you.
Okay, so you've taken care of yourself.
Yeah.
You're starting to feel a little bit more whole again.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about rebuilding trust, because that's got to be one of the biggest hurdles, right?
It is.
Not just trusting others again, but trusting your own judgment.
Yeah, how do you move forward after something like this without becoming jaded or guarded?
Right, exactly.
It's a process. It takes time.
Okay.
Some people find therapy incredibly helpful in navigating those feelings of betrayal and insecurity.
Yeah, therapy can be great.
Others find solace in spiritual practices, mindfulness, or leaning on a supportive community.
Yeah, I can see that.
The OP even mentions how much those Reddit comments helped him,
Right.
just knowing he wasn't alone.
Yeah, that sense of community can be so powerful.
It can, and it underscores the power of vulnerability of reaching out for support.
Mm.
Whether it's professional help, a close friend, or a supportive online community,
Right.
having a safe space to process those emotions is essential.
Totally.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, not all relationships can be salvaged after infidelity.
Unfortunately not.
Sometimes the damage is too deep,
Right.
or the betrayal is just a deal breaker.
Yeah. So how do you know when it's time to walk away?
That's a tough question.
It is. There's no easy answer.
Right.
It depends on the individuals involved, the nature of the infidelity, their willingness to do the work.
Okay.
But one red flag to watch out for is a lack of remorse from the person who cheated.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
If there's no genuine apology, no accountability, it's unlikely the trust can be rebuilt.
And I imagine that decision to stay or go is incredibly difficult.
It is. It's heartbreaking.
It's not just about logic either. It's about emotions, history, all those tangled threads that make up a relationship.
Absolutely. And sometimes the best path to healing is simply choosing yourself. Recognizing that you deserve a relationship built on respect, honesty, and fidelity.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the aftermath of infidelity, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
If there's one thing I hope they remember, it's this: Healing is possible.
Yeah.
Infidelity can be a devastating blow, but it doesn't have to define you or your future.
Hmm.
There is hope, there's resilience, and there is the possibility of finding love and happiness again, whether it's within the existing relationship or in a new one.
That's beautifully said. And if you're struggling with this issue, please know that you're not alone. Reach out for support, whether it's from a therapist, a trusted friend, or a community like the one we've glimpsed in this Reddit thread. There's help out there, and you deserve to find it. So that's it for this week's Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.